Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Jamar Montgomery, and I am from Southern University Shreveport. I am a political science teacher at Southern University Shreveport, as well as a blockchain lecturer. Today, we're going to be talking about a better democracy through blockchain. Before we get into the actual presentation, give you an understanding of who I am. Once again, Jamar Montgomery. I graduated at 19 with my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. I started taking college classes at 11 years old, started full-time at 14. I went on to work for the United States Navy as a weapons systems engineer for just under 5 years. Went on after that to get my Juris Doctorate degree, where I went on to work with the United States Attorney's Office in Shreveport in the Western District of Louisiana, the Louisiana Senate Bureau, as well as the Cattle Parish Juvenile Public Defender's Office. So I used to work with kids as a public defender. So I was a criminal defense attorney for children. Then, while I was in law school, I also received my MBA with a finance concentration, as well as working with Booz Allen Hamilton and my current employer right now, Boeing. Just to give you some more background of why I'm qualified to talk about these things, while I was working for the United States Navy, I also was a member of the NAACP, the Ventura County chapter. I was third vice president as well as chair of legal redress, where I really learned how to utilize the law and understood the law's power. After that, I ran for United States Senate in the 2020 elections. One of my claims to fame was that I received 5,804 votes as an independent candidate, no party backing, none of that. It was the first election in which people would call me crazy, but I got to vote for myself, and I also got to vote for Kanye West as president. That's the part that's crazy. Fast forward later, I would end up having meetings with President Donald Trump and also President Biden, attending some of their briefings. Fun fact, if you guys are familiar with what happened last year with Donald Trump and Kanye West, that meeting that they had at Mar-a-Lago, I was there. I was the person that was the opposing voice to Nick Fuentes. There's an article in the Huffington Post about me that entitled me "The Mysterious Fourth Man at the Trump Dinner." Right? Fast forward, some of the things I've spoken about have been DAOs in politics at the 2023 World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, where I was speaking about a similar topic as this. Digital identity at the 2023 Africa Next Conference, 2022 Midwest Con, 2022 and 2021 All Black National Convention, 2022 NFT Atlanta, and NFT Basel Miami. So just to give you an understanding of what my political career has been, as well as my technological career and blockchain career has been. So this has been something that I've been passionate about since 2016, and have finally been figuring out different ways of implementing the actual technology in my life. Next slide, please. So introduction, once again, we're talking about blockchain and its application in politics. So let's give you an introduction of election integrity and rationale. When we start thinking about politics and blockchain, we're thinking of politics, the system that we use for control of our society, which has in recent years been seen as more corrupt. And then you have something that we don't trust, and then you have blockchain, something that we're learning to trust, that is supposed to provide verifiability and validity of records. So let's give some background terminology so that we understand exactly what we're talking about. So DAOs. DAOs is the acronym for Decentralized Autonomous Organizations, DAOs. And basically, these are organizations that are run on code. So the same way that you have Robert's Rules of Order that would conduct your meeting, or you would have an operating agreement for your company, now you're having those same kind of operating agreements and that same kind of order written in code. So if this person does this thing, this is what's supposed to happen. Having more of that in code. Lately, they have been used as ways of organizing communities, of being able to fundraise communities and also being able to fundraise resources and conglomerate resources to work on particular projects. So instead of creating a company, you would create a DAO, and you can have a bunch of freelancers working on whatever specific project that you want without having the typical company structure. PACs, political action committees, and these are usually utilized as fundraising mechanisms for political candidates, ways of being able to organize their labor, volunteers, as well as political donations, as well as donate into other campaigns, donate into other candidates, and like I said, another way of rallying organizations and people together around a common cause. So if you already are hearing decentralized autonomous organizations and you're hearing PACs, it seems like they do similar things, but just in different arenas. DAOs are utilized in the blockchain community, PACs are utilized in the political community. We're very familiar with blockchain technology, as well as, let's go into decentralized identifiers and identification, which is something very critical. Normally, we expect for our government to be the one that maintains our identity, yes? Mm-hmm. But what about your Gmail account? Is that part of your identity? Your Yahoo account, your Morgan State account, is that part of your identity? True, right? Now, with blockchain, we can have decentralized identifiers where instead of a centralized body being responsible for our identity, now we have put our identity on the blockchain. One of the powers that we can have with blockchain is that I can show up as Dr. Jamar Montgomery, and I have all this different information, but I can limit who has access to that particular information. Or I can limit who's allowed to process that particular information. And that becomes very important when we start thinking about the intersection of blockchain and AI. Unfortunately, that is not part of this talk, but I want for you as the audience to understand and start thinking about how we utilize our identity, how that operates in politics, and how we're going to exist in a decentralized world where no longer centralized authorities like the United States government, like companies, are the main maintainers of our identity. Next slide, please. So what are some of the issues with traditional election systems? As we all know, during the 2016 elections, during the 2020 elections, these were very contentious elections. Very contentious elections. Some of the issues that we saw were with transparency issues, where dark money and undisclosed sources of campaign finance, money that was hidden in open sources. What does that mean? Well, in the Citizens United decision of, I believe, 2012, it escapes me, 2012, correct?
Around that time.
Around that time. The Citizens United decision basically said money was speech. And therefore, money as a campaign donation was protected under the First Amendment, meaning that it could not be restricted. So, super PACs were fundraising vehicles that were allowed to raise unlimited amounts of money. However, there could not be any coordination between the super PAC and the candidate or the candidate's campaign committee. Meaning that if I knew that this was a candidate that was pro-blockchain, I could have a super PAC, not as a candidate, as somebody that is passionate about blockchain, could start a super PAC, raise enormous amounts of money, and fund advertisements that were in favor of a particular candidate without donating directly to the candidate. Now, that brings up a myriad of issues because we're saying, how are our elections supposed to be fair when they're based upon money? The only way that I can get on television is if I have a large budget. But the only people who have large budgets are those that are beholden to large organizations. Let's go on to the next point. Accountability. Evasions and loopholes in campaign reporting. Once again, this is what we're talking about with dark money in politics, about the evasion and loopholes in campaign reporting. Entrenched politicians, party loyalty. I no longer want, how is it the people are feeling that their government is not responsive to them because why? This is the one thing that people do not understand about politics is it takes two things in order to get elected. Money and votes. But long before a politician ever needed your vote, they needed money. So I am more likely as a politician to listen to the people who kept the lights on and kept my volunteers funded than the people who voted for me. Manipulation concerns, gerrymandering, voter suppression, voting misinformation, and candidate fraud. What's the most recent example of candidate fraud that we can think of? Anybody know a man named George Santos? What school did George Santos go to? What's his ethnicity? But he's still in office. Clear evidence that this man lied. However, I have never seen it take this long to get rid of someone who clearly lied. There's a problem with our election system. There's a problem with our accountability system. I propose that blockchain is one of the solutions to that. Next slide, please. So, introduction to DAOs as an alternative. Next slide. DAOs as an alternative. Well, we have PACs already, but we have not utilized DAOs as PACs. And I'm saying that if the problem that we're having is with trust, accountability, transparency, DAOs offer a solution to that is no longer just reserved for centralized authorities such as the Federal Elections Commission, which every politician who runs for federal office is beholden to or under the jurisdiction of. That's where all that information is found, but it's not put in a way that is easy for the average citizen to access. It is an open secret, I would say. Meaning that if you don't know how to navigate the database, all the information is there, but if you don't know how to navigate the database, the information means nothing to you. Now, with having DAOs as an alternative, what I'm now allowed to do is have a decentralized structure, transparent resource allocation and decision making, traceability and trackability. I can trace who gave the money. I can track how much that they give when they give it. I can have a structure that is not beholden to a particular party. I also can find out who actually supports this particular candidate. And most people think of it in terms of targeting. However, what about finding other people of like minds? Something to think about. Next slide, please. So what are some of the benefits of organizing DAOs as PACs? Increased transparency in campaign financing, real-time immutable campaign finance records. We've been hearing a lot about campaign finance records. Where did the money go? Where is that? Where is that information held? Now, for the Federal Elections Commission, you're required every quarter as a candidate that runs for federal office to report your financials. The challenge with reporting your financials is that you have to go to a particular portal in order to put your information in. The other part is I might receive checks, I might receive cash, and most politicians don't like receiving cash because it's too much of a liability, too much of an issue, because you have to report every donation that you get. But if we're utilizing blockchain, if we're utilizing cryptocurrency, all that becomes even easier to track. So what we're saying is moving from a Web 2 system, from a traditional system, to moving to a more Web 3 based system that allows for, I can have a stable coin. I don't have to necessarily pay in Ethereum. I can pay utilizing USDT or USDC. I can utilize the same decentralized identification. My wallet becomes my identity. I put my identity on the blockchain. Next, we talk about prevention of fraud. There are smart contract safeguards against unauthorized transactions. One of the big issues that somebody has just gotten in trouble about is not registering as a foreign agent. I cannot receive donations from foreign individuals. So even with having blockchain solutions, I can limit whoever, if you're not registered, as a U.S. citizen, if your wallet is not registered as a U.S. citizen, you will not be allowed to donate. Those are something to think about. Direct voter participation through secure voting mechanisms. Now, people have talked about blockchain voting for the last few years, and I believe that we can implement those kinds of systems. The challenge becomes, anytime that you run into roadblocks, what you have to look at is who is going to lose money. Because it can be a great idea, but guess who now loses those billion-dollar contracts? Diebold, the voting machine companies. They're not interested in having blockchain voting systems right now, because then that means that instead of going to the voting machines, I can actually vote through my phone. I can vote more securely. I don't have to have a process that is so cumbersome, particularly when we think about the Secretary of State in each state now being able to have better and quicker and more efficient access to voting. Fostering trust through audible transactions, broad access to campaign information, but this last one, recall elections on demand. Our platform is called A Better Democracy. We're currently in the process of building it. It was started with the idea of thinking about recall elections. George Santos should not still be in office, but what you find out is that not every state has recall election voting measures. Is everyone familiar with what a recall election is? Yes? For those that are unaware, a recall election is basically when you have a sitting politician, a sitting elected official that you have decided you no longer want them in office. So you're able to actually create a recall election by petition that will start a new election in the middle of their term. So if there's somebody else that you want in office, or you want to get that particular individual out of office, there is an election procedure that allows you to do that. Not every state has that. Louisiana, my state, is one of the states that does have it. New York is not. Next slide, please. So what are some of the regulatory considerations? You have federal elections law that is a consideration. You have state election laws, which are a consideration. You also have privacy considerations. The challenge that people have had with transitioning from the traditional system to a Web3 system has always been with usability, privacy, and can it be hacked? Sound familiar? Aren't those the same concerns that we have right now with our current voting system? We're worried about the voting machines being what? Hacked. We're worried about foreign interference in our elections through what? Facebook, Instagram. We're worried about those particular things. So now, how do we insulate our election system from those kinds of threats? I believe that those threats will always be there, but having a pragmatic approach to understanding human nature and implementing our elections. Next slide. Next slide. So what's some of the challenges and what's the feasibility of this? Go ahead, next slide. Technological limitations and scalability. How do I get somebody to understand Web3? The answer is you don't. You give them a system that they're used to using with a Web3 or a blockchain backend. Meaning, how much more time do I have? 2 minutes! All right, cool. All right. Technological limitations and scalability, right? Making the user experience easy so that you can be able to scale it up. Having access, utilizing your phones. Everybody has a phone. Everybody has a phone. Think about that. Governance, legal and ethical challenges and strategies to overcome. Basically, how do we utilize this technology to be transformational in our elections? Recognizing who has something to lose in the new system and who has something to gain in the new system as well. Next slide. Implications in future applications. If bill collectors can take money from you and record your conversations, then there should be no reason that you shouldn't be able to prove who you are utilizing your phone. Now, mind you, there are countries that are already doing this. Ukraine has digital identity. Their driver's license is on their phone.
Delaware has it too.
Delaware has it. Louisiana just implemented digital ID as well. But being able to implement digital ID where its applications is in voting, is in taxation, is in all these different areas of human life in which we depend upon our identity. Next slide. Conclusions. Blockchain technology is here to stay. We have to continue to investigate how to use blockchain technology in our elections and in voting. And as a result, we will build more trust in our systems. We'd also make our systems more resilient from voter misinformation, because you can actually verify the information, as well as making sure that we have a better and direct connection between our politicians and their actual constituents. Instead of your politician being loyal to a party, your politician is graded upon how responsive he is to his constituency. Next slide. If you have looking for more information, you can find me. This is my QR code. It will direct you to my website. I like doing digital business cards, so my information is there. If you need anything, please feel free to contact me. My email address is info@drjamarmontgomery.com, and my socials are also there, as well as on my website. Are there any questions?
So you're talking about these wallets, the US, do I have time for a question, or do you want me to ask? I can ask it personally. Okay, so the wallets being attached to a US citizen, but a foreign entity could inflate a wallet that is attached to a US citizen, and then the transactions can take place, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
So there still could be some foreign influence that is not tracked by the system directly, since the wallet of the US citizen is the one that's making the...
Very true. And the same considerations that you're having right now are the same things that happen in the system right now, without even a blockchain system. So what makes it easier, though, is that now it can be, if that person is funded through the blockchain, that wallet is funded through the blockchain, you can also trace where that payment also came from.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. You graduated at 19, huh? With a mechanical engineering?
Yes.
Jeez Louise.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
So you did that, taking a bunch of classes when you were, what did you say, 11, 13, or what did you say?
I started at 11 and went full-time at 14.
At 14?
Yes.
Sorry, all of that is in the recording.